everybody. Thank you for being here for Dad. You know, if you disconnect Neil, I can turn off that music. I'm going to introduce you guys to Pastor Bruce. Bruce has been our pastor for like 16 years. Dad, I think like 20 years. And he's a super huge part of our lives. Anyways, he's going to open us in prayer. And then after that, what we're going to do, a few of us have already decided we were going to say something nice, talk about Dad. Doesn't have to be nice. Say something about Dad. And then if you are wanting to say something, if you can kind of be ready, that way we don't have a bunch of like awkward silences where everybody stares at each other. So, this is Pastor Bruce, and he'll get us started.
Yeah, on behalf of Michael and Megan and the entire family, we're so glad that you're here to celebrate Dennie's life. It is awesome to see a gathering of people that aren't wearing masks, that we can see each other in 3D. It's a pleasure. If you would, let's just bow our hearts and pray. Father, we thank you for the truth of the gospel, that when Dennie left this earth, the very first face he saw was yours. We thank you for the hope of the resurrection, that we know that Dennie is truly in a better place, and that we too, Lord, can have a reunion. I just pray for comfort for those who are just contemplating the loss and their grief. I just pray that you would bring memories back to our remembrance that we could share with one another, and pray especially for the immediate family, that you would just comfort them in their time of mourning. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Yeah, real quickly, I had the pleasure of being Dennie's pastor for about 20 years, and what I can say is Dennie loved people. He was wonderfully welcoming to people. He served at the church as a greeter and would always have this huge smile that looked like he had swallowed a hanger while sleepwalking through a closet. And Dennie was an incredibly gracious and humble man. He constantly wanted to help others and was always looking to serve others. One of the things that I remember about Dennie more than any is just the love that he had for his family. Michael is so proud of you and the man that you became, and so greatly enjoyed all the time that he got to spend with you. And as I think about my experience with Dennie and a small group of guys that we spent almost a year and a half together, that we would meet every week. And one of the things that I appreciated was Dennie had a true love for God and a true love for people. And he would constantly, there were men in this group of different generations, it was an intergenerational group, and Dennie would humbly admit some of his shortcomings and try to pass along the wisdom that he had gleaned from some of the mistakes that he had made along the way, just to try to encourage some other people in that group that they wouldn't have to make the same mistakes. And I so greatly appreciated that humility. I so greatly appreciate the love. And if there's one thing that I would summarize when I think of Dennie, it's that he just wanted to love people and be loved. And I so greatly appreciate and respect that. Thank you for letting me share.
We're like FaceTiming my son in Boston, but we're also videoing all of this too. We're gonna put it on YouTube or whatever, so you guys can watch it. Do it either of where is this?
Right here.
Oh, either you want to talk first or?
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Nice. I had. I wrote down some notes. It's gonna be super hard for me, so I apologize in advance. What's that? Okay. It's gonna be really hard to put into words what my dad meant to me. Bear with me because I don't anticipate this going easy. Dad was a godly man, regardless of what happened in his life. He always came full circle back to put his focus on how to become a more godly man. So my dad believed in Jesus and loved God completely. I'm not going to spend time qualifying that my dad was not perfect. That's a given. One thing I will say is my dad was forgiven. Dad took the grace that got extended to him, and he poured that grace out on everybody else that he had. He always saw the best in me. I'll always be grateful for that. And one of the hardest things I've had to think about since Dad passed away was the realization that outside of Jesus himself, nobody loves me unconditionally like my dad. Just complete unconditional love, no matter what. There's always a look of either love or concern or pride whenever I would look at him. He never judged me, and he just loved me. And that's going to be the hardest thing, I think, is not having that anymore. Like, I know a lot of you love, but you just, like, it's a little bit different, you know, just that total unconditional love. My dad was a beast of a man, the strongest man I know, and he fought until the very end. Growing up, I actually literally thought I was bulletproof because my dad was Superman. I thought anything, I could do it all because my dad did it all, and he just kept on tough as freaking nails. He fell off a scaffold 2 stories up, landed it flat on his head, and then the scaffolding fell on him. Then he got up, got in his 51 Ford with the original steering and brakes, and drove home, and Mom had a client in her office that he didn't want to interrupt. So he sat on the couch and bled with every single disc in his back fractured. And he waited till she came out. She's like, "What?" And he was like, "Well, I didn't want to interrupt. You're working." So, yeah, that's Dad, right? Guy was just a beast. He was incredibly talented in every single thing he did. He could build you cabinets. He could weld structural steel. He could carve wood. He could build a generator out of duct tape and toothpicks. He was a talented plumber, electrician, log home builder. He could build a home from scratch. He knew every aspect of all parts of it. He could diagnose problems, and all his years of experience could produce amazing results. And people liked working with Dad when he was in business because of his honesty and his love for others. They knew that he was a good man, and they knew that he would do everything it took to help them. That's all he cared about. Dad wrestled back in high school. Spent most of his time working on cars. Al's here. He's somewhere. Yeah, Al's one of his buddies from high school. He said, hopefully not focus on Dad's bad driving too much. Dad went to Europe when he was 20. And he actually wrote a journal that none of us knew existed. We found this after he passed. And going through a little bit of that just basically made me want to go to Europe even more. But he did that for 3 months, got a cool journal. Al drove back with them from New York. Dad served in the Army. One of the things Taylor was looking at his DE-214 the other day, he made rank of E5 in less than 2 years. That's kind of impressive.
It's pretty good.
At least in the movies I've seen, I don't know. Yeah, he always talks fondly of that time. He said he always volunteered for everything. As a kid went in the military, like his number one thing he told them is volunteer for everything. And I can just see him having a good look on his face, smiling while they were making him scrub pots and pans. He actually talked about how he did it competitively with the other guys. And he just always had a good attitude no matter what you asked him to do. And he talked about how the drill instructors couldn't mess with him because he was 26. So all the other kids were getting like all emotional, and Dad's just looking at him going, you're younger than me. You can't touch me. My mom and Dad spent Saturdays working at the school that we went to as kids.
Yeah.
So they couldn't afford to put us in this private school, but they went and worked all these Saturdays to make sure that they could pay for us to go to the best school they could put us in. Selfless. I appreciate it. Mom and Dad worked as, they did like a mobile missionary thing after retirement. where they would go into construction on churches and kids' camps. They helped at Forest Home up here in Ojai. They spent their first years of retirement working for free. Dad and I worked at the clothing pantry. That was one of our cool things we got to do. Build with there's a place that helped homeless people and stuff. We were able to build this clothing pantry together. It's kind of neat, just doing carpentry work with Dad, and he just gave us. It wouldn't matter what it was. Dad would do it. If you needed help with anything, he would stop what he was doing, and he would do it. You know, and I was the other day. I needed a ride. I was dropping my truck off, and I said, "Oh, I'll call Dad." I'm not going to apologize for crying. And I actually wore this shirt today. My wife had this made for me, and I realized this is my dad. So, I'm almost through this, you guys. Dad loved his Corvette. Yep. He loved that very, very much. We'd be in the gym with these good-looking guys over here, and he would do lunges with ropes, like squats, you know, just to practice getting out of his car. It's like you're sitting on the ground. And if you look at it, there's scuff marks from his size 16 boots getting in and out. Scott's had to fix it like 100 times for him. Yeah, I cannot imagine how he got in and out of that thing. But again, Dad was a stud. An absolute stud. Dad loved watches. That was something we developed recently as a shared passion. My Uncle Jim introduced me to watches. And I didn't even know that my dad already had like a passion for watches. Yeah. It became one of our topics that we discuss when we're having coffee, and which watch we're wearing that day. Why are you wearing that watch today? And this is a watch that I got for Dad. I tricked him into telling me what watch he would buy if he was going to buy an Omega. And we started going through it, and Omega, Dad corrected me on that. And this is the watch he picked, and then I tricked him and got it for him. And Dad was a James Bond fan. This is a 50-year edition James Bond. And so that was kind of cool. And it's a little cheesy, but I'm going to tell you this. But he asked why I got it for him, and I said, "This is for being a great dad. That's it." So I really think I scored points there. And then I haven't been able to put my other watches on since Dad passed. I'm gonna leave you to tell the other one, right?
Sure, why not?
Okay, good. About 10 years, Dad and I went to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday with these good-looking guys over here. And we would go to the gym, and it started out like trying to get buff. And then the last few years, it was more of like, let's kind of hang out. Lowering our weights every week. And then I spent a lot of time trying to trick him into cardio. Because he would not do cardio if you called it that. But if I tricked him, he'd be like doing something. I'm like, hey, you know you're doing cardio. Like, gosh dang it! We'd go to the pool and I would swim laps and he would walk next to me. And he couldn't swim. He would try, but his feet were so big, they would drag. He literally could not lift his feet up off the ground. After the gym, we go to the Coffee Bean. It's bittersweet. I won't go back to that gym again.
Yeah.
This sucks for my friends. Well, not for you. It sucks for me because of you. But that's the gym where I met my wife. And then we went to our first date at the Coffee Bean, where I don't really want to go there anymore either. But that's where Dad and I would go. And sometimes we'd hang out with these guys and have coffee. I would do anything for one more coffee. Dad was always willing to listen. Whatever I wanted to talk about, didn't matter what it was, he would listen. And he probably didn't hear me talking most of the time, but he would smile and nod. He loved coming to my job sites. The last picture on his phone of a project that we're doing in Malibu, and he was always impressed. Whatever I was doing, he was impressed. He was always impressed. It didn't matter what it was, just always so encouraging. We went to school of ministry together with Pastor Bruce. and we finished at different times. We ended up doing our graduation picture together. That's in this. It's in this little thing here. And then one of my buddies, Steve, couldn't be here today, along with Pastor Dave, who's I saw him somewhere over there. Oh, over that way. They were my dad's TAs, and we worked in the school ministry together and stuff. But Steve sent me a bunch of Dad's papers he wrote, and his goal was literally to become a better man all the time. He wanted to be closer to God. He wanted to learn Spanish. He wanted to whatever. He just wanted to do it. If it was better, he wanted to learn it. Pretty fun. And I've enjoyed reading some of those. One of the things Megan pointed out at Dad's house was that when you walked in, it was all Bibles, Bible commentaries, Bible studies, videos on talking to people about God, like all these things. Dad always wanted to improve. And he wasn't perfect, but he wanted to be an honorable man. It's a good feeling when you realize that. Like that's what he's focused on when he was in his living room. I mean, he sat there and it's all around him. When I think about Dad as a father, it's humbling. I honestly can't remember my dad ever yelling or raising his voice. How do you raise 4 kids and not be a screamer? I can't wrap my mind around that. Especially because I was a total butthead to my parents. I was 4. And what's that?
I'm speaking truth right now. I'm just confirming.
A little affirmation. So he always kept it cool. Unconditional love and treated with respect. I'll love my dad forever. Live my life to honor him. Honor God to make him proud. And make him proud. Cherish the time I have with him forever. And I want to feel the pain of missing him forever. I'm not doing him justice right now talking to you guys, but you get the picture, I think. So, that's it.
Hi, my name is James. I'm the old son. So Dad, for me, when he married Mom, I was a little bit older, and so Dad for me was the dad that I always needed. When he had married Mom, I was already in a place as a person where I was already kind of cynical. I was already kind of an old man, and I didn't trust adults. And I was pretty much the smartest guy in the room at like whatever 10 or 11 years old, and so you can't trust adults. You can't, you know. And so here's this big lumbering man in my life. He's married my mom, and she had a couple of kids already. And I already thought, even as a kid, I was like, oh, this is a mistake. Don't do this. You know. Oh, where do you think? You know, this tall. And the first year that Mom and Dad were married, I made his life hell. I was convinced he wasn't smart enough to really run this family. And couldn't trust him. He didn't like reading books. Dad was never a book guy. I thought, well, he's not going to make it. He won't survive. And that man wore me down. He wore me down. I was mean to him. I was just, I know it's mixed company, so I won't use the language. I was a bad kid for about a year. I made him pay. And Dad never raised his voice, never hit me. He never did any of that stuff. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? What is moving this guy to treat me like this? And it dawned on me as somebody, you know what he did? He loved me. And it rocked me. I thought, I've tried for a year to wear this guy down to show his true colors. He's going to come out to be just like other guys, other men, right? And he was so gentle. And he would tell me, he said, Butch, he called all the kids Butch, in case you don't know that.
He didn't call me Butch. He did not call me Butch.
Okay, he didn't call Ginger Butch. Let's let the record reflect. He didn't call Ginger Butch. The rest of us were Butch. You say, Butch, the strongest man is gentle. And even as a kid, I was like, I don't know, that seems kind of weird, kind of wonky, you know. And I would work with Dad, and that's what I remember the most. When he passed, and Michael and I went through his apartment, a couple of things that I grabbed were 2 of his white V-neck t-shirts. Because I remember Dad always working, and the feel and the smell Dad always worked, and if you wanted to know Dad, you worked with him. He worked. He was like a machine. He was so consistent. He didn't work fast, but he was like a machine. He was always on schedule. And even as a kid, I was like working in bursts. Like, Dad, let's hurry up. And he would say, Butch, it's just a job. And I'm at that point like 12 years old, like, it's not just a job. We have a deadline. You know, I'm a little stressed out kid. He's like, oh, let's go listen to Paul Harvey. It's noon. So at noon, if we were driving, he would pull the truck over, pull out his old boombox radio with a floppy antenna. We'd find a place with lunch boxes, and we would listen to Paul Harvey the rest of the story, like clockwork. We would stop jobs. I said, Dad, we're getting work done. Again, I'm a little kid, and he's like, time for Paul Harvey. Let's get your lunchbox out, Butch. He was the person that modeled to me what it was like to be loved by a father. So for me, in my relationship with God, again, Dad wasn't perfect, but he did the things that meant the most to me. He did those things right. He adopted me. My birth certificate says James Anthony Adams. He adopted me. He just didn't adopt me and was kind to me. He changed my identity. He changed my birth certificate. That was huge. That changed everything for me. So, as I've gotten older, I've appreciated what Dad did. At first, I was thinking, he's not book smart. He's not real quick. I don't know. You know, he's pretty good at trades and working. And as I've gotten older, I watch my dad, and now I have people in my office who are saying, "Whoa-de-do." Dad would be on a job site. It's like, Dad, you're a contractor. Dang it, let's get this done. It's like, whoa-de-do, Butch, it's fine. Probably almost time for Paul Harvey. It's like, oh my gosh, we're not going to get this job done. But what I appreciated, even as Dad passed, was Dad was a simple man in a lot of ways. None of us are really simple. But Dad had a few things that are important to him, and he did those things. And if you met Dad and you spent time with him, when you were in the moment with him, that was your moment. Dad wasn't looking at his phone, taking pages, taking calls. You were in that moment. You were in the bubble with him. And as I've gotten older, it's like, wow, what a gift to live in the moment. And that was Dad's thing. That was his superpower. When you were with him, you were important. You were the person in that moment that was him. And so, he was the first man in my life that said, I'm proud of you. He was the first person that I remember that said, I love you. As a man, a father, you know. And I remember working alongside, learning things from him. And his big old massive bear paw hands wrapped around mine. He's like, no, Butch, do it this way. I told you 10 times, let's do this. And just him wrapping around me showed me how to work a tool. That's gold. That's feeling him work a tool and his expertise in his hands who've done this thing 10,000 times. And he's imparting that and showing me, spending that moment with me. So, for that, Dad changed my world. And in later years, I felt like, well, you know, he wasn't that great a business guy or whatever. And I realized none of that's important. The important stuff, Dad did right. And he did it consistently. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm not Butch. And I'm the daughter. And I have the old-fashioned paper. Some reflections. When Dad first was in the hospital, James and Michael were telling stories about Dad, and that was awesome. But I couldn't think of any. I was blank. But then as I reflected the last few weeks, I pulled the 3 attributes that just keep coming back about Dad. And, you know, like has been said already, is kindness and patience but also resilience. Like Michael, I think Michael and James implies that he just kept trying and trying and trying to, to learn and grow. So the patience, kindness, and resilience just keeps sticking out to me. And when he first, he exemplified kindness from the get-go when he adopted James, Coop, and I. I mean, what man does that? You marry someone and you
3 broken kids.
bring in the 3 kids already there, and you adopt them, give them your name. That's pretty amazing. I just appreciate that. Back then, he didn't get angry. He liked to laugh and tell jokes and tell stories, especially one-on-one. It was really good one-on-one. Loved just laughing and being in the moment, like you referred to, which is something I could continually try to absorb and do. I tend to be very task-orientated and driven, so to be able to be in the moment. I remember one time he built this treehouse, right?
Yeah.
Yes. He built this treehouse in the backyard. I can't remember, it was kind of clear, but we enjoyed that so much, and we used to sleep up there and do sleepovers up in this treehouse.
Yeah.
And just terrifying to think about now. We did that, and then or we'd sleep on the ground outside, have an adventure. And I remember that's when Michael got bit by the bat. Yeah.
Yeah.
We think it's a bat.
That was real.
Did you have to get shots?
Yeah, 40.
40? Stomach.
Shoulder, butt.
Yeah.
Hey, I was there.
So,
I was there.
It was real, right?
that was cool. I mean, not the bat thing was not cool, but the treehouse is just one example. He could make, fix, create anything. And so he built this big old treehouse that we could really have fun on and have hours of bonding time as brothers and sister in there. One time when we were looking for cars, when I was first looking for cars, he was helping me pick out cars and what would be good and what's a good engine. And I remember this one car, the orange VW Rabbit, and I said, "Ooh, I don't like the color." And he was like, I remember the look on his face, like, "What? You don't pick a car based on color?" Like, I don't like that color. But I ended up getting the car. But I was really turned off by the color. But he, checked under the hood and all the important stuff to make sure it was a good, solid car. And I had that car until I got married to John. And then he gave me safety driving tips on driving, which is ironic when I think now back to Dad.
Yeah,
And his driving. But he gave a lot of driving tips, which I still use now. Like when I'm putting on brakes, I tap them a few times so the person behind me really sees when I put the brakes on. And like these, like several tips that he gave me as I learned to drive. My kids and husband will attest to that. Needed all those tips, and I still need to use those tips. Anyway, Dad continually strove to learn, grow, and improve, and I appreciate that. And though I didn't say these things to him at the time, which I'll have to live with, I'm saying them now to honor him and celebrate his life, because he was a very big man, not just physically, but heart-wise, to deserve the honor and celebration, because he was constantly kind, patient, resilient in everything he did. So from this day forward, I'm going to try to appreciate being present with people that are in my life and not wait till I'm around. So thank you.
So is anybody else wanting to have a moment to talk about Dad? Al, I know you would want it too. Is this a good time for you, buddy?
Okay.
All right. Remember, don't focus on the bad driving.
You can mention it.
You have to talk loud too, Al. You have to talk loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis and I go back in the days when we were invincible. It's too bad when you get older, you lose a lot of that. Anyway, we used to tease fate, race cars, all kinds of stuff, and cruise the strip and chase the girls. And Dennis is a big boy. He he could bench press. I don't remember what the weight was now, but it was more than most people. In fact, we go to roller skating and stuff, and they didn't have shoes big enough for him. I think he had a 16 or something like that. He was a big boy. Arm wrestling, all that. Boy, get ready. And he had an older brother that was kind of a mentor of his, who was Clifford.
Yeah.
And Clifford was into working out and all that stuff too. And anyway, so we used to do a lot of things together in school, and we had a group that we hung around together with. And what have you. And I remember one time we were at Dugan's. It was a place where they had the baseball things and stuff, you know, and they, you know, the pitcher, you know, and all that stuff. And they have all these pinball machines, and here's all these old thug kids in there hanging around smoking and stuff. And Dennis got on religion. And I'll tell you what, he started pounding it. And he had all these little thugs listening to him, because if they wouldn't listen to him, he got on them, you know. And they're all getting all around Dennis here. He's teaching them, you know, which was good. It was part of what Dennis was all about. He had a big heart, you know. And the trip we had together after he went to Europe, he went with 2 other guys, and they went over to Europe, and they had bought a Volkswagen, and they were bringing it across the country. Well, I just done a sign job for Granny Goose at the time, and had a pocket full of money, like $300-400. I bought an airplane ticket on a TWA Connie. Took 12 hours to get back there anyway. And we took that Volkswagen, got it off the ship. I met him back there in New York, and got it off the ship. And we went down to Washington, D.C., and we went to a few museums and checked things out. You know, the Lincoln Memorial, and this, and that, and the other. Then we went on up to Pennsylvania. But I remember one place, I'm a sign guy, and I borrowed some Dolphinite, which is a kind of a watercolor that doesn't wash off unless you have hot water. So it didn't wash off in the rain. And on the back of this Volkswagen, it's a white Volkswagen, VW Bug, and I put California or bust on the back list. And we went across the country with that on it. And I remember going into we're going to have breakfast in Iowa. And they had this restaurant there, the big windows and everybody there, and all these pickups out there, and all these farmers and stuff with their John Deere hats on and big overalls and stuff, you know, typical farm area. And I said, Dennis, back in. He was driving. I said, back in, so they can see that. And I had a T-shirt on. It said Moscow University on it. And they do have one. It's in Idaho. It's called Moscow University. Well, anyway, I saw that T-shirt. I had that on. And we walked in. These farmers, you could hear a pin drop in there. California bus, and we walked in. I wish I would have known some Russian and started talking Russian. I could have really figured them out. But anyway, then pretty soon we started talking and laughing and stuff, and pretty soon they all relaxed and they, you know, discovered we were Americans. And where you all from? California. Do you know Bob Jones in California? Yeah, I know him. Yeah. Anyway, so they're typical like that in Missouri and a lot of places like that, the farm community. But anyway, that was one heck of a trip. I'll never forget it. And Dennis, I lost track of Dennis when they moved. Him and his wife moved here to Ventura. We lost contact for quite a few years there, and so I missed out on watching all his family stuff. What a great family! I'll tell you, it's part of Dennis, you know. And anyway, but I used to fly to Reading to see him and visit. And that Anderson and what have you. In fact, I knew Mike. We went to breakfast one morning there in Anderson, and Mike was only about 4 or 5 years old at the time, and that was the only time I ever saw him till now, and what have you. And then I got in contact with Dennis a few years ago through the internet somehow. I don't remember what it was. You know, we talked on the phone and stuff, and I said, next time you go to Reading and stuff, let me know, and I'll meet you and go with you and stuff. And we talked about it, we never did do it though. It's over with. But the thing about it is, in our younger days, we used to tease fate. You know, that's the way kids are, let's face it, the way it is. And we got by with all of it somehow, I don't know. I mean, I rolled a car one time, Dennis got his teeth knocked out the second time. And you know, we used to do this stuff, but we were good kids. We drank a few beers and stuff like that, which, you know, and then chased the girls, that type thing, and what have you. But a lot of good memories and stuff, and his family here is a real example of what Dennis is all about. good moral standards. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have some memories or something that they'd like to share right now? Come on up. Can you tell them who you are?
Alright, hello, who I am. Stranger, I walked in off the street and saw some people here. No. Grandpa Denny. I'm I think the oldest grandson.
You are.
So my experiences are different than I guess as a son would be, or as a spouse would be, or anything like that. But as a grandpa is how I knew him. It's just still not real, sorry, because he's still here to me. And I don't mean hypothetically. I mean like I can't wrap my head around it. That he should be here. Like he just accidentally missed his own party because he's working on his 51 Ford or whatever the heck it was, and just lost track of time and is gonna show up late. And then popped the hood and start talking to everybody about what was wrong and how he fixed it. But he just made stuff up as he went, and I knew it. But it always worked out. It always worked out. So to be honest, I didn't even think twice about. I didn't think twice about it when I heard that he had had a stroke and had been laying on a floor by himself for 2 days, and I didn't think twice that he wasn't going to bounce back from that, because you couldn't take him down, not in any way. A lot of my work ethic and the way that I approach problems comes from my dad and also from my grandfather, and vicariously from my dad that he learned from his dad. And I remember when the first time of a couple times that he dropped the fifth wheel on the back of his truck.
Yes.
Most of my memories are mistakes, but to be honest, it wasn't because it was a mistake that it made a memory. It was how he reacted. It was how he reacted to mistakes. I was also butch. I don't know how many butches there were, but there was a few of us that were butch, and a lot of it as a grandfather and working with him, because again, it's true, if you really wanted to get to know him, you worked on something with him. Even if I knew nothing about what he was talking about, I mean, he just talked like I already knew what we were talking about. But I remember one time holding a board. I was talking with Michael about it. Holding onto a board, and he was always so precise with everything, but occasionally he'd get stuff mixed up. And I was holding up a board, and he was shooting a framing nailer into it, and he had marked it, and he put the X on it to know what side to frame in and nail in. And he turned around, and well, that's the mirror opposite. And my arm was next to the framing.
Yep.
And I looked down. I don't know how old I was, maybe 10. He just assumed a 10-year-old could do anything. And I see the nails coming through, but they're hitting the stud and moving out. I mean, they're not in the wood. And then I hear it go past me and then come up above me, and I'm like, oh, this isn't real. This didn't really happen. My grandfather really didn't just shoot a 16-penny nail into my elbow. That's not a thing. Of course he knows. He knows everything. And so we went. He lets it go to go on to the next board, and I start going down with the board because I've let go, but it hasn't let go of me. And he literally just takes his roofing hammer and pries it off my elbow real quick, and he's like, "Oh, that's not so bad." He was like, "It's okay, Butch, but here was the thing for me is, I believed him that wasn't a big deal."
Yep.
Because he decided it wasn't a big deal, and it completely reframed me. I'm 35 now, and as an adult, when things go accidentally sideways, or her, however, that it's just a thing. You know, it's okay. It's not a big deal. You're not. It's not even. He needs to convince you about it. He was completely at peace that him shooting a 16-penny nail in my elbow and then prying it off like it's just a 2x4 was just a normal day. A normal day. You know, like it's just okay. It's gonna be all right. And I mean, everything from stepping on nails, having stuff go through my hands, to all the stuff that I experienced, my time in the military, my time with my father working for him, because in a lot of ways my father is like his dad, and that if you want to get to know him real good, you work with him. And so I worked for my dad for several years, 9 years, 10 years, and but that was the kind of the approach. It was never freaking out when there was a problem, and that was one of the biggest things I got from my grandfather. Was it's not that the problem's not real; it's that it's okay. And if he was able to make it to his own party today, he'd be okay, because it's gonna be all right. And that's all I got. That's one of the biggest things I got from him is that it's gonna be okay. And to keep trucking along.
Yeah.
And you find your pace and you maintain it for life. Because he didn't do 200%. He didn't do 101%. He just did 100%. And he just kept it going. That's what I'm going to keep on doing. So I'll miss him.
Yeah.
If there's anybody else that would like to speak, Miss Amy.
So I'm going to be like Ginger with my written out. So I'm Amy / Auntie Amy to all those adorable kiddos. I have just a couple things to say. I can't say anything new that we don't already know about Dennie. He was an amazing man. His light, his energy, his spirituality, and everything he did with heart. He was a kind, generous, loving, godly man. I have seen and talked to Dennie almost every day for many years now, and each time there was always a smile on his face and a twinkle in his eye. When we were in our old building, I saw him more than I did recently, and we would talk about all kinds of things. The guys, movies, his Corvette,
Yep.
why he planted his avocado trees where he did, and plans, everything. So one thing that was always consistent was the way he talked about his family. I have gotten to hear about each and every one of you for so many years, and it was amazing. His face got brighter, his smile got bigger. He was so proud of each and every one of you, and it was by name. So I just want to make sure you all know he was so proud of you and talked about it. It was my favorite thing to listen to because it was just amazing to see. And so I got the privilege to watch a video that Michael had taken of Dennie, and it was one of the purest, sweetest videos that I have ever seen. And Dennie was flirting with the nurses. And his face was just lit up when they walked in. You're like, oh my goodness, is he flirting? What? And it was awesome. And you could feel his light and his energy through this video. I was told by someone recently that even though someone is no longer physically with us, they're still inside of us and around us. And I think we can all say that about Dennie. His light, his energy are absolutely still here. Whether it's all of his grandkids talking about him, their memories, Michael, Ginger, and James' memories of their dad, and all of us having our memories of learning something from him in the mornings, or hearing a story from him, or just hearing him laugh. We all still have Dennie in our hearts. Dennie lived a good, adventurous life, and he has an amazing family to show for it. So until we see you again, Dennie's loved.
This is actually a painting picture of Dad on that Amy took on one of our fishing trips. So we took, the whole company goes out on a big fishing trip and ran on a boat. Dad was a patriarch, so he would, yeah. It seemed like all the guys would always come up to him and like, you know, just looked up to him. And every one of them was the kid.
Which?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think Tyler was the kid for like 4 years.
Yeah.
I was talking to the kid. Okay, would anybody else have anything they wanted to say?
Mike Logan.
All right, John.
Okay, Denny was my father-in-law, and I never forget when I met Denny. I shook his hand, and I shook his hand, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a mountain of a man. I mean, the guy was just, he was just huge. Later on, he told me, in a very humble way, how when he worked out in his younger days, that he could curl 90 pounds 90 times. He did 3 sets of 30. 1, 2, and 3. And he didn't say it in a way that he bragged. He just said it. That's just what he did. And he just truly was a mountain of a man. And anybody who works out, you know that 90 pounds 90 times, you are the man. Because that is, I don't care how good you are, that is unbelievable. And I always admired the guy. And just like everybody says, later on you just think, he was always compassionate and he was always kind. He would help me with anything. And Denny, you say people can fix anything. Denny could truly fix anything. I mean, anything was broke, Denny could figure it out and he could fix it. And he would help you with it. And I always admired, later on in his life, Sherry and Denny had a missionary traveling mission where they went and helped churches and anything that needed help. They would go drive over there and set their mobile home over there and work on a church or a campsite or anything that was Christ-like. And Denny would. He always would build the intricate stuff. He was like he would build a stairwell. And anybody that knows construction, if you were going to build a stairwell, you were the framer who really knew what they were doing, because he would cut everything precise and make that stairwell. But I'm really going to miss his friendliness and his compassion. He'd always give me a big hug, which made me uncomfortable, and he'd always tell me what great shape I was in, and I'd be like this guy was just, even at his old age, he was just in great shape. And he goes, Butch, you're in great shape. And I'm like, thanks, Denny. The guy was just unbelievable. And he truly loved everybody and was compassionate to everybody. And I'm really going to miss that. He was just a mountain of a man. And I really appreciated him. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Is the picture on here of Dad when he was all like this?
No.
The boat picture? The boat was on the boat?
I think it's on one of the 5x7s, maybe on the tables.
I don't think so, Greg.
It's not?
He was a monster.
How we missed that
Yeah, that was
one.
like Dad's favorite
That's like the
picture.
best one.
Just standing there casually.
That's anybody. 6-pack, not 8-pack.
Yeah. If I had one, it'd be up, but I don't have it. Is anybody else wanting to say anything? No pressure, just asking. Because if not, we'll wrap it up. So, interrupt me if you do. So, just like a little down to business here. There are restrooms out that way. They're loos because they're fancy. And then my buddy Armando is here. We're gonna open up the taco tent. So we kept you guys long enough without eating. So some of you came here just for the food. We'll get that going. There is areas to hang out. If you would like to have some like private conversation, there's areas up there. Well, just walk that way. You'll find it. There's different areas to sit and hang out, or you can go for a walk or whatever. Golf cart. Where's Jason at? Oh, there he is. He loves the golf cart. He likes to make fun of me for it. So you guys can eat, hang out, whatever. We're gonna have the pool open. We have a lifeguard here. Kids can play in the pool and just have fun. And
Want to show where the drinks are?
there's these things right here are kind of spaced around, and they have drinks in them and stuff. And then there's a fridge over there too. There's don't use that bathroom back there. It's just yucky. Use those ones. And then we're just gonna be hanging out. We're gonna get some music going. I'm glad you all came on behalf of all of us. We're grateful that you were here to celebrate Dad. It is a celebration. Dad was just a rad dude. It's actually super helpful just to be hanging out with you guys. It's helping a lot. So yeah, there's also stuff like Dad's journal. If you want to check it out, we can drum up that picture of Dad if you guys want to see like with the six pack.
Obviously.
I've got it on my phone actually. I'll probably stream the little video that we took. James and Ginger both text me within 1 second of each other. And I wasn't going to video anything or take any pictures in the hospital because I did not ever want to remember that moment. But that's because he's Dad. There's no way it's going to get worse. It's going to get better because he's Superman, right?
Yeah.
They both text me the exact same time. That had to be a God thing.
To ask me to videotape.
To video Dad.
Yeah.
And so that video's fun. It's a little hard to watch, but it's also fun. So I'll probably get that like streaming if somebody here is young and understands that stuff. But otherwise, please just hang out and share in conversation with Dad. You're welcome to do whatever you want, okay? As long as it's like moral, legal. Just qualifying that. These guys over here are wild. Okay. Is anybody else? Last call. Want to say anything else? Okay. Cool. I appreciate you all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.